Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 24 quarterback rankings for week 3. You ready? Those Fantasy Goodfellas.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
Those Fantasy Goodfellas. All right, we're going to talk about the top 24 quarterback rankings for week 3, and already you might have a question on which quarterback you want to start. Like I had Tua versus Daniels, so we hope that this video gives you a little insight of what you can expect for week 3, and maybe this video helps you with your lineups. All right, let's get started. All right, the number 1 quarterback for week 3 is obviously Patrick Mahomes versus Chicago. Now, this is a no-brainer, but if you look here, Mahomes had 29 completions for 305 yards and 2 passing TDs. Now, he was only the 12th ranked quarterback. If you're in a 16-team league, he's almost your backup at some point, depending on who you drafted. Now, I know that seems crazy, but you know what? It only takes that much. So let's go. The number 2 ranked quarterback for this week is Jalen Hurts at Tampa Bay. Now, the problem I always think is it depends on what's going on and how many touchdowns you're getting into the end zone. If you look here, he didn't have that many passing yards, but he had 193 passing yards and 3 TDs, 1 in the air and 2 on the ground, and that's why he's the 4th ranked quarterback for week 2. The question goes, is he going to be able to repeat that against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I don't know. But let's go. You're going to start him anyways. At number 3, we have Josh Allen at Washington. Now, here's a prime example of who you should start. Now, everybody picked Josh Allen to be a top quarterback in week 1. And look, he was the 20th ranked quarterback. And depending on who you drafted, he could have been a bench player in week 1. Now, I doubt that you're going to bench him this week, but it only takes that much in a 16-team league to start considering your backup quarterback. But in week 2, he was the 7th ranked quarterback, and he had 3 passing TDs for 274 yards. And that's what it takes. At number 4, we have Lamar Jackson. He'll be home versus the Indianapolis Colts. And Lamar Jackson was the 9th ranked quarterback in week 2, and he did not have any rushing TDs. So that's 2 passing TDs, 237 passing yards, but it was that 54 yards that kind of pushed him over. Now, the one thing I want to point out is there's a lot of action. He spreads the ball out. He's got a lot of targets. At least he's getting it to a lot of targets, and that should bode well. He's not just relying on one tight end. His Mark Andrews is tight end. He definitely is distributing the ball. That bodes well, and there's a lot of weapons that are on that team. At number 5, you have Justin Herbert. He'll be at the Minnesota Vikings. This should be a good game. Should be a blowout. But here he had 305 passing yards and 2 passing TDs. And that, but let's just look. I want to look at his weekly ranked. In week 1, he was the 6th ranked quarterback. In week 2, he was the 11th ranked quarterback. Gives you an idea what he's doing on the season. He's top 10, top 11. He should be able to continue that. At number 6, you got Kirk Cousins. He'll be home versus the Los Angeles Chargers, and we just mentioned that. But, you know, for me, this is what you want to see, right? You want to see your top guy getting 4 passing TDs and a lot of yards. And that's what happens when you have weapons. And they just added another one, Cam Akers, who's dying to show and get out of that Los Angeles Rams offense. But look, they just added Cam Akers. They got Jefferson. They got Addison. They got TJ Hawkinson. I expect him to do well again, right? If those wide receivers can make a quarterback, those weapons are making Kirk Cousins. At number 7, you got Tua Tagavaloa at home versus the Denver Broncos. The Broncos defense really hasn't been doing anything. He should be able to spread it out. But the problem with Miami is what I see is, one, is that Tyreek Hill seems to be questionable, but their running game is definitely on fire. You have Raheem Mostert had 121 rushing yards and 2 TDs. If he's getting into the end zone twice, that's taken away from a receiver getting into the end zone. That's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt Tua. So it really depends on what that running game is. I think they continue to run. I don't expect Tua to be. I expect him to be on the bottom half of that top 24 rankings. At number 8, you got Trevor Lawrence, home versus the Houston Texans. Now, he had an off week. He was out of the top 30. He threw it for 41 times. But look at that completion ratio. That's not good. If you're about 50%, that means something's going on with that offense. You're either going against a good defense or Trevor Lawrence isn't getting the ball. I don't expect him to be hurting like that again, but especially when you have Ridley and Kirk and Evan Ingram, you should be able to get that ball out. It's the Texans. He should do pretty well. At number 9, you got Dak Prescott at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Dak had, I believe, an awesome week 1. No, that's why these stats come into play. He was the 29th ranked quarterback in week 1. He didn't have to do much that game. I think what happened is they scored a lot of points, but they didn't depend on Dak. In week 2, he kind of got the ball out, got 255 passing yards, 2 passing TDs, got him into the mid 17-15 ratio. And that's what you kind of expect this week. So I think that's a little high for him this week. At number 10, you got Justin Fields at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Chicago just lost their defensive coordinator. Their offense is not doing too well. But here is a quarterback that can kind of run it in. He can pass it. And he's bound to have a good game. I think he has a good game this week. I think Fields is good right around that 10-11 spot. At number 11, you got Gino Smith. He'll be home versus the Carolina Panthers. And again, I don't understand why Gino can't light it up a little bit more, but he had 328 passing yards and 2 passing TDs. This gives me an idea of where did the ball go. He got about 120 yards from his tight ends, and he got about 190 yards from his wide receivers. So it's going to his wide receivers, and I think he can stay in that top half of this chart right there. I expect him to be right around where he's at this in his predictions, which is 11. At number 12, you got DeSean Watson. He'll be home versus the Tennessee Titans. Now, I don't know what's going on with Watson. Everybody seems to love this guy. He's high in a lot of people's rankings. Some people were excited to draft him. I don't think he's having a good season. Week 1, 154 passing yards, rushing yards 45, 2 TDs total. But that seems to be a running team. And I think even though Chubb's out, you got Jerome. He got into the end zone. And that's going to Jerome Ford. That was going to get him into the end zone. I like Ford. So I don't know what they're going to do because Watson, there's question marks on Watson this season so far. At number 13, you got Jared Goff versus the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Goff is a good quarterback. He seems to be settling in very well there. They got a lot of weapons. I like what the Lions are doing this season. And I think Goff can kind of he was the 6th ranked quarterback in week 2. I like to see him a little higher than 13. At number 14, you got Brock Purdy, home versus the New York Giants. Now, he doesn't have to do too much. I don't expect him to do too much. But you know who's hungry? Is those wide receivers. Those wide receivers need to get the ball. Brandon Ayuk, not doing too much. Deebo Samuel, if it wasn't for the running game, he wouldn't be anything. But I expect Purdy to have a good game. He needs to have a good game, and those wide receivers are awesome. At number 15, you got Daniel Jones at San Francisco. Now, Daniel Jones was the number 1 quarterback in week 2. Now, that was completely different than week 1. Week 1, I don't even know. He wouldn't even be in the top 24 on rankings. But all of a sudden, you go from ranked 28 in week 1 to the number 1 quarterback in week 2. You got Barkley out a couple weeks. So what does that offense look like? You got Barkley, you got Breida. He's going to have to pass it against a good defense. I don't think they're going to run it anyways. So Daniel Jones, though, where do you think he lies? I think 15 is a good spot for him. At number 16, Russell Wilson at Miami. I don't know. There's a lot of people I know who do not like Russell Wilson, although in week 2 he was very good. In week 1, ranked 16. That seems more to be a Russell Wilson type season, is the 177 passing yards, 2 passing TDs. This is where I expect him. This is where he is. That's what I expect around 16. At number 17, Matthew Stafford at Cincinnati. Again, Stafford's been hurt because you don't have Cooper Kupp. Let's look at the wide receivers. Who's on there? You got Puka. He's stepping up. You got Atwell, and you got Van Jefferson. We know he can ball, but he's got the weapons. He got disgruntled Cam Akers out there. He should be all right. They need to warm up. That offense needs to light it up, and I think this is the week they do it. At number 18, Jimmy Garoppolo, home versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Garoppolo, again, 31 passing. Ranked the 31st best quarterback in week 2. That's terrible. That's right outside your backups. That's what type of season. And that's what type of game he had in week 2, is right outside a backup quarterback, right? You got 32 teams. He's the 32nd. So if you got Garoppolo, you might be looking at your bench quarterback. At number 19, you got Baker Mayfield, home versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Baker's quietly having a good season. Is Baker Mayfield finally coming into his own? Possibly. Now, he is going against the Philadelphia Eagles. Tough matchup. If Baker Mayfield does well in week 3, I think you can count on him for the rest of the season to be in the top 16. At number 20, Kenny Pickett at the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Pickett, 29th best quarterback in week 2, 222 passing yards, 50% completion ratio. That's the part that startles me a little bit, right? So here he have, I don't know, about 75%, 70% passing completions. And he was the 21st, week 2. Hold on. So in week 2, he was the 29th ranked quarterback. Now, does that cut it for you? I don't think it does. You need points. Something's got to give. Who's his weapons? George Pickens, Allen Robinson. So Pickens had a good week, but that doesn't seem like a good distribution of passing yards. If you got one receiver with only 4 catches that almost takes your entire yardage, that's not a good quarterback in my mind. They're going to rely on the run in this game. I don't expect Pickett to do too well. At number 21, Sam Howell, home versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is a quarterback that has got to be high on. If you have him, you got to consider starting him. I know some people picked him up on the waiver wire, but you might have to start him just depending on who you have as your number 1 quarterback. He's getting the ball around to a lot of different receivers. Look, 3, 8, 10 different receivers. That shows that he's playing really, really well if you're getting that many different targets. That's a good quarterback. I think if you have him on your bench this week, you might regret it. At 22, Jordan Love, home versus the New Orleans Saints. Now, here's a quarterback that if you got him, again, you got to start him. And it depends on where you picked him up. But here's a couple things. Yes, he has some passing TDs, but look at that. Only 14 completions. So let's see how he did in week 1. He had 15 completions. If you have 15 completions and 14 completions in a week, that's not well. That's not good. So he was ranked 16. He might not make, you might be looking at your backup here as well. So be careful with Jordan Love. Just, he's only 50% completion ratio, 15 completions is not cutting it. At 23, C.J. Stroud at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I think this is a quarterback that is quickly improving. Look at this, 384 passing yards, 2 passing TDs, and then let's just look what he did in week 1. Week 1, he had 242 passing yards, 20 rushing yards, 260 total yards. And in week 2, 384. Let's just look at that distribution ratio that I always like to check out. You got Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Tank Dell has definitely moved up on the waiver wire. Some people are picking him up. I think this quarterback is going to come into his own. You got to trust Stroud. You might have to depend on him for the rest of the season if you got him. And at 24, you got Derek Carr at the Green Bay Packers. Now, here's Carr. So this is his stats. Let's look at his weekly ranking. This will come into play more down the season. But he was ranked 14th in week 1 and 33rd in week 2. That's terrible because remember, there's only 32 teams. That means somebody else came off the bench and got more points than him. Scary. Scary if you're dependent on Derek Carr to win you some games. And that's going to do it for us here at the Fantasy Goodfellas. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our videos. We also do a lot of shorts. We're going to be doing some shorts on the waiver wire pickups this week. No, I already did that. We're going to do the injury report coming up soon. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope this helps you set your lineups, and I hope you have a good week. All right, so thanks for watching, and good luck.